Hello, welcome back to Kochie's Business Builders Online. Today we're going to take a look at how you're able to lift your business to the next level and the important issue of protecting your procedures and intellectual property. But first, news you can use. And as if we needed to be told, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission has released figures showing that 2012 was a tough year for business. Just over 10,000 small businesses had to shut up shop, and the experts say there will be continued pressure on industries such as retail, construction and tourism in 2013. These are the industries that really need to focus on re-engineering their business to the new environment and watching cash flow carefully. Now, earlier this week I spent a fair bit of time in Greater Western Sydney. This has been the focus of both sides of politics for the last week or so. Prime Minister Julia Gillard has based herself at the Rooty Hill RSL Club. Tony Abbott has been making frequent visits as well. They want to get to the hearts, minds and votes of the people and small business owners of Western Sydney because they are an incredibly powerful bunch. Why? Well, would you believe within a 17-kilometre radius of the Rooty Hill RSL Club live 2.2 million people and 70 different nationalities. Now, to put that in perspective, 2.2 million people is the same size as Brisbane, is greater than the total population of South Australia. Economically, Greater Western Sydney earns more than the economy of Melbourne. So it's a very important area, and one that reminded me that for all of us in business, we should be acknowledging that Australia is very much a multicultural society and targeting our messages to different segments of the market. Greater Western Sydney is a great reflection of that. Now, both sides of politics want to know the issues that will garner them our votes. Now, KBB's Alex Brophy sat down with the executives from COSBOA and asked them what they thought the big issues that needed to be answered were.
Peter, thanks for joining us. So what are the key issues that need covering this election year?
The main points that small business people always talk about is, one, they're not sure of the future, so they just want some surety in where the economy is going and what they can do with that as a business person. The other one is get rid of the red tape. It's just so annoying to have the interference by government that we get all around Australia. And the other one's competition policy and contract law. At the moment, if you go into a franchise, or if you go into a shopping centre, or if you go into some sort of contract, the contracts have a basic unfairness about them because it's considered business negotiating with business, and therefore it's fine. You just leave them alone, and if it's unfair, and that's not a problem. But if you're negotiating with a huge landlord, that's not an equal negotiation, and they use the power that they've got to make life very difficult for you, and in the end, they've bankrupted many people as a result of their ability to negotiate very unfair contracts or leases. And on top of that, when the small business person is right, what the big landlords, big franchises do is they make sure that the court case that comes as a result of them being right goes on for so long that the small business person runs out of money or they die. And there's been cases of that happening out there. So when you talk to small business people, it's just say, look, can you just make it fair? I don't want protection. Nobody wants protection. But stop protecting the big landlords and stop protecting the big franchisors from litigation and from fairness. So I hear that, and we come to red tape, and the fact that we collect superannuation and send it off to multi-billion-dollar financial institutions, and we do it for free, we don't get paid to do it, we get fined if we don't, it's just crazy. And those super funds, in the main, and particularly the industry funds, are very inefficient in the way they communicate with small business. The GST, of course, is another imposition, and we've got to do that. That's just part and parcel of being in small business. Workplace relations is certainly confusing and certainly scary for people. They're worried about unfair dismissal, and I'm not sure if they should be worried about it, but we often hear about the problems of unfair dismissal. They're afraid of getting it wrong, not because they're evil or horrible, but because it's so complicated. So we've got to start making things very simple for the small business and the small workplace and the people in those workplaces.
Okay, so they're the fundamentals. What about the specific things?
Well, the specific thing is take us out of the collection of superannuation, just put it into PAYG, and that's a big win. Now, the opposition said they will do that. So we never see the word superannuation again. It's all included in tax, and it's up to the person who owns the money. and the tax office to work out what happens to that money, which is fantastic. That is what we want. A small business industrial award. We need to have one of them in place, a very simple award that's very easy to understand by people who aren't paymasters, and nobody in a small business is a trained paymaster. So we need an award that's really simple to understand. With workplace relations, we need the Fair Work Ombudsman and the Fair Work Commission to not come in on the side of an employee. They need to come in on nobody's side, work out if there is a problem, and if there is, then they fix it. But at the moment, they automatically assume the employee is right, and they ask the employer to prove that they're not guilty of something. And that's just very wrong, especially when there's just one of us and there's one employee in some cases. What we also need is a focus on us as people in the health sector. At the moment, if you employ someone, you've got a lot of requirements on you to look after that person's health, look after their work-life balance, look after a whole range of things, and nobody's looking after yours. So you have to spend more time of your life doing work for other people and not getting paid for it. And people like the Human Rights Commission, the Fair Work Ombudsman and those sorts of people don't really care if the employer, that person who runs their own business, has a mental health problem, becomes ill, is overstressed, can't do what we've asked them to do. They don't really care about that. And that's the big change. Start talking about us as people, talk about the fact that we employ other people, talk about the fact that we're actually a very good group of people. We're very honest, we do things the right way, we don't rip people off in the main, and we're good employers and good members of the community. That's the message we've got to get out there. And at the moment, we've got one side of politics, the extreme right, that want to see us as victims of the unions and victims of bad policy, and you've got the far left that want to demonise us and say we're terrible employers, that we destroy people's lives and we steal money. Now, they're both wrong. Small business is a great place to be. Let's send that message out to other people that that's what it is, and then remove the red tape and make it easier.
And why do you feel small businesses aren't getting the right deal already?
So, good question. What we've got in this country is when people talk about business, they talk about all businesses, big and small, and we all imagine big business. But the reality is of the 96% of all businesses in this country are small. 96%. 90% of all workplaces in this country are small. 60% of workplaces employ less than 5. There's 2.5 million small business people in this country, and between them they employ about another 5 million people. 7.5 million people earning money from small business, making a living from small business, getting lifestyle from small business, and most people don't know that. And I include policymakers in that. So when they go and design a policy, they design it for big business. They design it for someone with an expert on pay. They design it for someone with an expert on OH&S. They design it for someone who understands the tax system. And they forget that 96% of businesses are small. When we get that message across and they design communications and process for the 96%, then things will be a lot better and the economy will be a lot healthier.
Peter, thanks for joining us.
Well, great, thank you very much. And let's remember there's 2.5 million small businesses and every one of them vote.
Coming up, grassroots guerrilla tactics to boost your sales. Subscribe now to the Kochie's Business Builders app, delivered to your mobile device on a fortnightly basis. You'll get the very latest advice from the KBB team of experts and also exclusive interviews with Australia's most successful entrepreneurs. Download now by searching for Kochie's Business Builders on the App Store. Now, when it comes to sales, often your best salespeople are your existing customers and also neighbours in your backyard. Matthew Aker has been riding the Dancing with the Stars boom. His Arthur Murray Dance Studio has been going great guns, but he wants to take it to the next level. So we sent in our marketing specialist, Linda Haley, to give him some great tips.
So one of the first things to think about is when you're trying to build your profile in the local area is to go back to basics and actually start thinking about the people who live in the area. And I actually like to start really small. So the first thing to look at is who's in this complex here. Mm-hmm. So I think there's, 6 or 7 businesses?
Yeah.
And next door, you've got a pole dancing studio.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are they the same target market as you?
No, not at all. They're very much a different target bracket. They're definitely a very different cost bracket than what we are too. If anything, they do bring a little bit more exposure to us than maybe we would to them. So that does work somewhat in our benefit. Okay,
so one of the first places to start is actually getting some cross-promotion going between the two of you.
Yeah.
And if you can find another business that's in your area and is similar, there's no harm in doing an open day for both studios. Although it's a younger market next door, they've still got parents, they've still got friends who may be interested in the ballroom dancing. The other thing that we need to think of too, with the market next door being younger, is they could be potential wedding couples.
Yes.
So younger girls getting married who want to do their wedding dance. So a bit of exposure's not a bad thing. Even down to putting a brochure leaflet outside so that anybody driving through the complex can actually pick that up.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we've looked at the immediate area, so let's widen out again. So around here in the business park, who do we find?
Primarily, I mean, there's larger corporates within Norwest that are part of the local business chamber that we were part of there, and in and around there is the shopping centres and that sort of thing that are all within a general sort of short distance away.
I tell you what could be a really good idea is to do some casual leasing in the local shopping centre.
Okay.
Because you've got a product that's very visible, and you already do bridal fairs and other trade shows, you've already got the material to pop that straight into a shopping centre.
Yeah.
So that would give you exposure to the majority of people who are shopping there, who tend to be couples.
Yeah, my demographic.
Yeah, your demographic, exactly. Are there any other high traffic businesses in the area?
There's a bowling alley right underneath us.
Yep.
They definitely bring a lot of traffic through, especially on the weekends. That might be an opportunity.
Okay, so I think probably the best thing is to go for a drive at the weekend and have a look and see who's out there. Where's the high traffic? And think about how you can tap into their markets. So that could be signage, it could be some joint promotion, it could be asking them to actually distribute brochures.
Okay.
So that takes care of that particular area, and I think you said that there's a major business park locally.
Yeah, there's Norwest Business Park, which is right beside us.
Have you had anything to do with any of the corporates?
Not so much. We have done like corporate events. We did an event for some of the Woolworths staff. We did an event for some of the Koch staff actually in the area, and we've done other corporate more along a team building sort of seminar things for people who wanted to use the dancing as a facilitator.
So what was the response when you did it?
It was really, really good. It was great exposure to the studio for one, when we could actually get them to the studio. In some cases where we were actually going out to their venues, which probably didn't get the same response because they weren't getting the whole experience of what the studio had to offer.
Part of your local area marketing is to make the most of what you've got. So you've already done corporate training programs, so you've got all the material for that?
Yeah.
Do you have, I mean, are your staff trained to be able to do it as well?
No. I think in that situation it would be something that I would want to somewhat keep as myself doing it, but maybe have, depending on the size of the event, have my staff helping me out for a better exposure.
Okay, so we know you've got the material, you know how to do it. Yes, you may need to train some of your staff. I think you've got a golden opportunity to get doing some marketing fairly quickly.
Okay.
Darren and Heather Stewart own Macon Tracks. It's a company that builds mountain bike, walking and adventure trails. It's a really unique business that's been going really well. Their concern is how do they protect their designs and their logos and their intellectual property? Well, I had just the expert to help them out. Peter Wilmot from Australia's Intellectual Property Rights Administrator, IP Australia, is catching up with Darren to explain why it's important to get protection for his brand and also to clear up a common misconception about business names.
A business name is simply an administrative tag, if you like. It doesn't embody any proprietary rights or any legal rights in that brand, and that's something a lot of businesses get a bit confused about. They think, oh, I've registered my business name, I own that name. Well, in effect, a trademark is a far more powerful right. It's a legal right. It gives you coverage across Australia and it lasts for 10 years. The issue for a lot of businesses is that they won't protect their brand when they start out. And so what this means is they'll do a lot of work in building up the business, creating some market awareness of the business. And just when you're starting to be successful, you'll pop up on a radar somewhere and a bigger fish will say, hey, you know, that brand, so in this case Macon Tracks, is too similar to ours. So say if there was a business who had a trademark called Macon Shacks, they'd say, well, our customers could get confused about your brand. They'd send you what's known as a cease and desist letter, which would essentially mean you'd have to rebrand your whole operations. But even more costly would be the time and effort you've put into building up Macon Tracks as a brand and making customers aware of it. You'd have to start from scratch. And so that can really be the death knell for a lot of small businesses.
What's the involvement in registering a trademark?
Okay, it's a case of making a formal application to IP Australia. Now, contrary to popular belief, it doesn't actually cost a lot of money. Like to apply for a trademark costs $120, and then if it meets the checks and balances that we put it through, you can register it for $250. So for $370, you get registration in that trademark for a particular class of goods and services. So in this case, it would be the class that relates to construction for 10 years. So $37 a year is a good way of protecting what really is a business's most valuable asset.
And are there any other things that we can do to protect our name?
I guess in the meantime, what a lot of businesses do when they're waiting for a registration to come through is they use those little TM letters next to their brand or their logo. That indicates you're claiming that logo or those words as your trademark. Now, once you've got it registered, you can use the R in the circle, and it really does act as a mark of authenticity for you and your business. It's saying that you know what you're doing from an IP perspective, and even that little R in the circle acts as a bit of a barbed wire fence around your brand.
Thanks to our friends at Microsoft Office 365, Business Builders has a series of 3 live, absolutely free webinars coming up over the next couple of weeks. I'll be quizzing a panel of experts on making sure your business is at the cutting edge of technology and productivity tools. And I'll be putting your questions to them. So get your questions ready and register now. Welcome back. Time to answer your questions. Keep them coming on Facebook or email or Twitter. We love to hear from you. This question from Julian on Facebook. I'm looking to buy an established small business in the food industry. How do I know if the same customers will be coming back? Look, it's just so important if you buy any business, any service industry business, that you've got to work out how many of the customers are tied to the owner that you're buying the business from. And you can judge that just by hanging around the business and finding their contacts. A good first step is to make sure the existing business owner works their way out of the business rather than a cut-off date that they leave. Get them to work for an extra 6 months or so that they introduce you to their customers. So there's a smooth transition. So you build your own reputation with the customers while the existing owner is still there. That makes the transition a lot easier. Also, a lot depends on whether you change the product offering and the service standards. If the service standards drop or the product changes, well, then it's anyone's guess how the business will fare in the future. Look at location and convenience. You will retain customers if your location and convenience is one of the major reasons that they keep coming back to actually trade with you. But the main thing to consider is work out who your target customer is. Talk to them. Organise a little focus group, survey them so they know that you're interested in improving the business to suit their needs. They'll be really impressed by that and think, well, new management means a better business, and they'll stick with you. So, Julian, good luck with that. Also, don't forget to get a good accountant to make sure the transition is smooth. Well, that's all we have time for this episode of Kochie's Business Builders. We'll catch you next time.